Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 25 of Monster. We are over the 1/3 mark, and like I said last episode, we have introduced ourselves to the main characters of this series, the cavalcade of extras we've gone through. And yeah, last episode we ended with Eva basically inadvertently kind of saving Tenma from Roberto, but getting injured herself. Tenma saved her, and then she was left with the one guy that was the second in command to Johan for the organization that he developed. And now we believe that Tenma and Dieter are headed to Munich to possibly find a lead to try to keep on his quest to confront Johan. So it seems on the one hand like we're getting closer and closer to Johan, but we're still like arm's length away. We're still not near him, and we have no clue like how Lunge's physical therapy is going, what he's dealing with, what's going to happen with Eva now. Like, it's all kind of up in the air. Again, like the last several episodes have been just like piece by piece, episode by episode. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, and that's fun, but it's also kind of terrifying. So I don't know what we're going to get out of that, but I'm really, really excited. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen with this series as we go, and I hope that you all are as well. I do have one comment to say, and this is kind of just like, not really a comment about the show itself, but it's in regards to Lunge's character, and Doily E, with like 5 E's, said on YouTube, they were like, Lunge is important to Monster, because yeah, you don't need him in the story, but it's kind of like, if you didn't have Lunge in the story, it'd be like having a hamburger without pickles. And I was like, yeah, that's a really good analogy, because it's like, you don't need Lunge in the story, not all the time, but then it's like, it's that extra little sour twist that you kind of, it just makes it a little bit more layered and tasteful, right? And Lunge is such a character. Him and Eva, like all these characters with their weird obsessions with Tenma, I'm like, stay away, please. But the coffee shop that's in town, they have a special every week, and they do like a special latte flavor. And this week, the special latte was called the Werther's latte, and I was like, oh, and it was basically like salted caramel and toffee nut. Highly recommend if you like those flavors. But as soon as I got it today, I like had to go into town, and I got it, and I was like, I want to watch Monster now. Because I had the Werther's latte. So am I going to need a Werther's after this episode? I don't know, because I don't know what's going to happen. Not a clue. So I guess we'll find out, won't we? So I'm really excited, y'all. I'm going to hide this toy away from Huckleberry so that he doesn't try to like get me to throw it while I'm watching the episode, and then I'll throw it afterwards. But I'm really excited, y'all, to see what's going to happen. I hope you all are too, but we're not going to waste any more time. I want to see what's going to happen. And so we are going to start Monster episode 25. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's do this, y'all. Oh my gosh. I loved this episode because, man, they just kept building the tension and building the tension and building the tension, and then it's like, oh no, and the moment we find out the Thursday boy, supposedly Edmund, ends up committing suicide. The moment we see that, it's like, oh well, guess that point's done, and I'm like, well, then what was the point of chasing them this whole time? But no, there was a Friday boy, and Friday boy was Johan. Yeah, so I'm a bit concerned for Karl. I hope this was not a one-off episode. I'm wanting to watch episode 26 really soon, so I'm hoping, because I'm about to leave for a trip and I need to watch it ahead before I go, so I'm like, I really want this to be like a 2-parter, and part of me wants it to be a 2-parter to see Karl and like see this continue to get more with Johan, because it's the first time we've seen Johan in like 20 episodes, but then the other part of me is like, I don't want this to be a continuation because I'm afraid for Karl and Lotte's life. I'm afraid that Johan's going to kill them. Or lead to their demise. Maybe not Lotte, but Karl, yeah. So, holy cow. Also, that Edie is frightfully creepy. The idea that the monster bursts out of that guy's head. Ugh, gross. Creepy. I figured some creepy was going to happen, and there we are. But yeah, so can we talk about this episode? Can we talk about this, the Thursday boy? Okay, so we basically have this man Schubert, like Hans Schubert, all right? We have Hans Schubert that is this wealthy old reclusive man. We'll talk about him, right? we'll talk about him and how this is all playing out. And so we have Karl Newman, who I'm assuming Newman is the name that the foster parents gave him. So we have Karl, who is Hans's son, right? His biological son that was left behind and has been raised by all these foster parents, right? Just so happens. And he has a token. He has a token that proves he is Hans' son. And I wanted him to give it to him so bad in this episode. I was like, just give him the token so that he knows it's you and not Johan. But the thing of it is I think that it would have been a bad time to give it to him, because then the Hans is thinking about Johan right now. So if he had given him that token, it would have made him really conflicted and everything, and it just would not have gone well, especially when they were about to find out about the suicide. So Karl's a very interesting character. I like Karl's character a lot, especially once we find out he's not after the inheritance. He's not after the inheritance. He just wants to know why is Hans such a person that his mother wasn't upset by him and didn't feel like he had abandoned him. He's like, I don't understand why my mom was acting this way. Like, why did she still love him after all this time if he's supposedly this man that like just left us? And because she says that he didn't. So there's this mystery surrounding his actions, and I want to know more, but it's one of those crazy things where Karl doesn't really look like Hans or his mom, right? So then there's that wonderment then there's the question of, okay, is Hans actually the dad? That's what Miss Bella said. Like, is that the case or not? But man, so he's been reading. So basically he has students visit and read Latin to him every day of the week, right? Every day of the week. And Hans is the Tuesday boy. That's when he comes to read every week, right? And Lotte was a really like ominous character at first. I was like, what is she here for? What is she doing? But it turns out that she has a different part to play. So Karl's been coming to read to him every week, and he just doesn't like it. I want to make note of this house. The room that is set up here, right? That there's just all the trinkets and everything. There's like so many chairs. There's like in this one room, there's a chair that Karl's sitting in. There's a chair that Han's sitting in. There's like a chair that's by another table. There's a chair that's by a different table. It's like space for all these people to sit, but no one's there, right? Isn't that kind of weird? There's like all these chairs, like room for people to sit and everything, and there's just no one visiting him. It's almost like a symbolic representation that he wants people to visit, but just doesn't get that luxury for whatever reason, right? And he says, people who can't pronounce Latin correctly have no right to read a book to me. Like he's judging Karl for how he reads. So he says he only likes beautiful things and only the finest of things as well. I get like a Little Mermaid vibe with Johan and Karl. Like Karl is Ariel and Johan is like Vanessa. Is like what the monster Ursula turns into to try to woo over Prince Eric. And Hans is Prince Eric. And it's not meant to be like a romantic comparison, but there's the idea that Karl is the real son, but because Johan is meeting up to the expectations that Hans has, Hans is going for Johan and almost hoping that that's his real son. And I'm sure that Johan has fed him some story about being raised by foster parents, looking for his real father, because Johan wants the money. And we're going to talk about that, right? So Johan is posing as a law major, a law major at Munich. Okay, at Munich University. Okay, sure thing. We're going to go through this, right? But yeah, Karl ends up leaving the house, and then Lotte is watching him. So we're going to go past this OP. Get out of here. So Thursday's boy. That's what the episode is called. Oh my God. Thursday's boy, and he's at the university. Munich University, Friedrich Emanuel School. Yep. And so going there. And so he gets off the bike, and then Lotte shows up. And everybody's in their best 90s gear. And she said, you got scolded harsh at the mansion. And he's like, who are you? She has kind of like at first she has like an Eva vibe to her, the way that her mouth is upturned and her eyes are kind of drawn. The mangaka makes her look a little bit like Eva. But as the episode goes on, it's almost like a red herring, right? And there's lots of red herrings in this episode. The Thursday boy is a red herring. She's a red herring. Because at first you think she's going to be kind of maybe dangerous or something that's like suspicious. But she ends up not being. She's just too nosy for her own good, right? And so he's a business management major. So we'll get this. Business management major. Karl Newman. All right. And he's just like, who the heck are you? He's like, what? He's like, how do you know about me? And she says, I'm Lotte Frank, a cultural anthropology major. So we'll put Lotte down here. We have Lotte Frank, who is a cultural anthropology major. What a major. All right. And she's basically just the who's who. She reminds me of like the guy. She reminds me of the guy in Scott Pilgrim versus the World that just instantly knows what everybody's like. Oh, this so-and-so that's from this so-and-so that's doing this. Reminds me of that character. And so she asks about what he thinks about George, the mysterious millionaire, Hans Georg Schubert. And he's like, I don't know. Because he doesn't know much about Schubert other than the fact that he's sure that that's his biological dad. That's all he really knows. He's like, I just thought the wage he was paying was pretty good, so I jumped at it. Which is a likely excuse. And she says, haven't you heard the rumors about him? There's a phone line in the mansion where you can manipulate the German stock market. So there's this rumor that he can manipulate the German stock market. Okay. Which would be very enticing to Johann if it were true, if he had access to that sort of thing. And so she also tells Karl that they call him the Howard Hughes of Bayern, but also they call him the vampire. His fortune just keeps growing and growing. No family, no acquaintances. What do you think he does with all the money? She's like, there's an even bigger mystery than that. They also call him the vampire of Bayern because he goes out like randomly at 2 a.m. He gets in a car that looks like a hearse and goes to town at 2 a.m. And I thought it was like Johann leading him around, but the anime makes it seem like it's not Johann, but then it says, it looks like a scene from a gothic horror movie. And he just gets in his wheelchair and goes. And I like that Karl's like, oh, he's just going out for a stroll. I'm like, at 2 a.m.? An old man? No way, man. So he just makes money mysteriously. Here's the thing that would appeal to Johann. The fact that he's a millionaire and is able to manipulate the German stock market would appeal to Johann a lot. But Johann has just recently left his company in shambles. I mean, Johann just recently left the company he was working for completely desolate and probably maybe needs a revenue flow. If he is hiring people to commit these murders and do things, he probably needs money to pay them. So the fact that he would want to hook up with a guy that has access to the German stock market and is making lots of money would probably be to his benefit. So I get why Johann would target Hans. And if Johann is, giving him the sob story of, oh, I'm just, lost my parents and stuff. And Hans is putting two and two together that this guy is about the same age that his son would be, then yeah, he would probably come to the conclusion that, oh, this kid could be my son. And he's deluded himself to thinking like, this is exactly what I'm looking for in my son. Someone who's beautiful, who's articulate, knows Latin, who's smart and intelligent, fits the same age range, is interested in, me. I could accept him as his son. And all Johann needs is for Schubert to sign off saying that he's his kid and just take his money. Because Johann has kind of a track record of being adopted by wealthy, individuals that are foster parents without their own kids, their own heirs, and then suddenly, boom, they end up dead, and Johann takes the money and runs. So, there's a consistent track record there. It's a bit freaky, right? And so she's like, I'm not so sure that that's right. And so she says that she's like doing this research paper, mental activity of medieval and current day financial figures in Bayern. She says she's doing research for her paper, but I'm like, girl, you are just a nosy busybody who wants to know what is up. And you're probably going to get killed doing that. But I don't know. Would Johann kill Lotte and Karl? Yes, I think if he finds out that Karl's the actual son and finds that threatening, he's going to kill him. But I hope there's a part 2 to this. I hope we get to see a part 2. Yeah. I hope we get to see what ends up coming to this and that we don't just leave the case, right? I hope that's what ends up happening. I don't want to just leave it, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, he says cruel things to his students. But then Karl says, I'm used to getting yelled at and beaten up. So Karl has had a bad upbringing in the foster system. But he does like his current family. He's like, I kind of like my current family now. I'm in a good place. I don't want anything bad to happen to them. He's like, I'm used to getting beaten up in the past, and so that's always been a thing. But he's like, it's fine now. Right? So yeah. This episode is so fascinating because of just setting up Karl's character. And she's like, you aren't from around here, are you? And he said, you did investigate me. Like, there's a little part of me that kind of ships Lotte with Karl, a little part, but like, she's so nosy. I'm like, girl, stay out of his business. But I love Karl's character. Karl's character's so relatable and nice. And she's like, oh, you don't have any parents. Okay. And he's like, I came here to find my mom, but he doesn't care anymore. He's like, it doesn't matter anymore. So it doesn't matter because he found out what happened to her. Margot Langer. I love the 90s computers in this series because it's very, very dated, very fun. I love just the very like time capsule quality of it. But she finds out what happened. It's like his mother was murdered as a prostitute, right? And so like Karl, who's frustrated by this whole thing with Lotte and his mom, ends up going on Tuesday to Schubert's house and reading to him and just gets yelled at. And so she's like, I looked up your mom. And he's like, I do like that Lotte is considerate enough. She's like, do you want any help? Do you want me to say something? Like, can I do anything? And he's like, no. He's like, there's nothing you can do to help, right? He came to Munich to find his mom and she's already dead. And she's like, you wanted to see. And then that's when Karl's like, how about I come with you and we'll figure out what happens on Thursdays. And she's like, oh, that'd be great. Which I don't blame her. Like, walking around town in the middle of the night by yourself. Like, as a woman, I'd be like, yeah, you seem like a decent guy. You come along with me. Make sure I'm okay. So then we have this, like, news crew, like, journalist crew. They're talking about this news story that one of the men who founded this school in 1502 wrote this. Like, what is this prophecy Nostradamus stuff happening? So there's apparently this prophecy that the founder Bishop Gropius, which sounds like just a lovely name, wrote in 1502, saying this cryptic, it's clear one of the men who founded this school wrote this note. And I like these guys are just kind of humoring him, right? They're not really taking him seriously at all. And it says the most important part is this line here. In the second to last larger year, the Thursday boy will come to this land, and the book shall be engulfed in flames. So, it's 1996, the second to last leap year. Okay, supposedly. And it says that a Thursday boy will come and burn. It says the books, burn all the books. Okay. So destroy, books shall be engulfed in flames. It could be the books from the school itself. It can be referring to like the book shall be engulfed in flame. Like evidence could be referring to him trying to get rid of evidence. Could be referring to him trying to get rid of the culture and the language of something. It could refer to a lot of things, but the Thursday boy. shall come, and all the books shall be engulfed in flames. Now, my whole thing was, it said the second to last leap year. Well, if 2000 is a leap year, is that technically the last leap year, or is that the first leap year? What do we count, right? Because if it's not, then we'd go back, right? And the world will be wrapped in sorrow. Okay, and that's the other thing. The whole world wrapped in sorrow. Seems to fit Johann pretty well, right? Seems to be fitting. But then the whole Thursday boy thing, it's like my take on it is that they said when the Thursday boy comes. He says, will you ever get it? He says, in the second to last larger year, it's 1996, so it's this year. And they're like, well, how the hell does that make any sense? And they say this because larger year means leap year. The only leap year left in the century are this year and 2000. The Thursday boy will come to this land, and the book shall be engulfed in flame. So, the book engulfed in flame could mean like the book that Karl is reading to Mr. Schubert, that there could be like an Eva-style bonfire take place and then engulf something in flames. It could be referring to that. When they said the Thursday boy will come, my question is, we know that Johann is the Friday boy, right? Johann is the Friday boy, even though I said the Thursday boy is handsome as well. But it could be that the Thursday boy and the Friday boy came at the same time. It could be that the Thursday boy coming was around the same time that Karl did and Lotte started to notice. So the Thursday boy coming could have been a signal to Lotte and Karl to start investigating, and that got back to Johann. There's lots of different things that it could be, right? Lots of different things it could be. But the point is, that's what they think, that they're like, who is this Thursday boy? And they're like, we just got to figure out who it is. Who'd believe a god of destruction would come to the school? Ha ha ha! And again, the red herring is you think that Johann is the god of destruction. When he is, and he's there, he's just not who you think he is at first. It's like, oh my god. So yeah, then we go to like the pictures and the lovely district where it's just like a bunch of ladies with the boobs hanging out. Lots of prostitution in the sex workers that are uptown, right? And it definitely had that like 70s porno chic feel, but this is the 90s instead of the 70s. So interesting. I like that Lottie's like, screw this vampire Bayern. Is the truth that he just goes and sees smutty films? And Karl believes there's something else to it, and I do too. I don't think that he's just going to this like the porn cinema on, you know, different evenings, because Karl knows him and he likes the finer things, and he keeps saying he likes beautiful things. Why come to this like smutty cinema if he's a man of like refined tastes? Like, to Karl that seems rather contradictory, right? Also, it's a big old red flag to Karl because his mother was into prostitution. So he's like, what the hell? You know, why is my dad coming here? Like, Karl doesn't want to think of the place that his mother probably frequented and ended up dying at. So to Karl, this is like a very big, like, I shouldn't be here moment. But the Schubert guy is going to see this prostitute every week that is imitating an imposter for Margot, right? He's like, I want to see how low this man is. So Karl wants to know. He wants to know the man who left his mom and him. And Schubert is going to this former prostitute impersonating Margot. So did he love Margot? And if so, why did he leave her? If he loved Margot and had a kid with her, why did he leave her? Why didn't he take her in? What was the point? What was the thing? Because she was beautiful. Like, when we see this woman, it's like, oh, okay, well, he likes beautiful things, so maybe Margot was, you know, an error. But no, she was beautiful. So, and she seemed like a beautiful person inside and out. So why did he leave her? If he likes beautiful things, what was the deal? So there's that mystery. Why did he leave her? And I feel like Karl wants to know the answers to these questions. But it just, the timing is all wrong, right? And she's just, like, she's quite frightful, like, with the rouge and the cigarettes, and, like, she doesn't even have, like, a nice glass of wine. She's got, like, a Porto de Rossi, like, a $10 jug of wine. She just pouring into a fancy glass. Like, she is not anything like what Schubert seems to ascribe to. And he's like, yeah, I work part-time for him. And she says he comes for pleasure, but it's like he can't do anything, right? He just comes to give her money. And when I came and told him who I was, he cried and apologized to me. So yeah, he has regrets about Karl's mom. We just don't know what those regrets are. Like, why did he leave her? We don't know that yet. And I'm hoping next episode we find that out, right? I'm hoping we find that out. He left me with a child and threw me away like trash. But that can't be. And said, that's right. In the paper a year ago, it said former. The former prostitute Margot Langer was murdered, the killer unknown. So we don't know who killed his mom. Wouldn't it be something if it was Johann? I don't think it is. I don't think it'd be that big of a coincidence. But it's like an unsolved case. And yeah, Karl just looks mad that this woman is impersonating his mother, right? You're using the name of Margot Langer to swindle Hans Schubert out of money. Like, and it's like, it's not the fact that she's swindling money, but the fact that she's using his mother's name that really gets him. And she says that Schubert knows it. So, oh my gosh. So that begs the question. That makes me a bit nervous, because if Schubert knows that this woman is not the real Margot Langer, then it's clear he knows that Johann is not his real son, but he's so desperate to have this, like, sense of this world that he's trying to construct that he's willing to lie to himself. So what's going to happen if Karl admits that he's his actual son? Is Schubert going to believe him, or is he going to be like, oh, that can't possibly be true, until he gives him the trinket? My fear has been that Johann will steal the trinket. That's been my fear, is that he'll steal the trinket from Karl and use it to pass himself off as his kid. Like Vanessa the Sea Witch. But I don't know if that'll actually end up happening or not. And so he's just trying to pay for his sins with money. So yeah, so that's the thing. The idea of paying for sins. Paying for sins with money. Like, this is his way of atoning by giving money to kind of like atone for the fact that he left that woman behind. And so she says, it sounds arrogant, but people aren't that different. It's like a man who has only lived for money can't think of anything else other than money. Yeah, it's, again, going back to the idea, like, if you live for this, all you can think about is it. And she's like, people are like that all the time. She's like, it's not anything uncommon. She's like, there's a method where introducing yourself as his son gets you a piece of that dying man's ridiculously large fortune. So I wonder if Johann has actually introduced him as his son, and Schubert's just starting to, like, try to convince himself that this is the real one or not. But apparently people do that all the time. She's like, I might be a liar, but I know what I'm talking about. There's another boy who calls himself his son. He came here with the same story. And so it's like, you take turns reading to him on different days. He's the Thursday boy. Yeah, looks like an imposter to me. Now, did she say it was the Thursday boy? You take turns reading on different days, don't you? I want to go back and see, like, this boy is also one of them. Like, was it Johann that came? No, it was the Thursday boy. So it was the one that killed himself. Okay. And so they end up leaving, and she's like, why didn't you tell her that you were the real one? And he's like, I've had all these foster parents, and I finally found a decent pair. So he's like, I don't really want them to, like, feel like I don't care for them anymore. He's like, the ones I have now really take care of me. I feel I could never thank them enough. He's like, I don't want to leave the parents I got. He's like, they're a good family. I don't want to leave them. I just wanted to find out who my parents really were and talk to them now that I'm an adult, right? He's like, I felt that I needed to meet my real parents. That's it. Like, he doesn't want anything. I wanted to know how low my real father was. so that I could love my current parents with all my heart. That's the thing. He's like, I wanted to prove my dad was a douchebag so that it would make me feel better about liking my foster parents and treat them as if they were my own. So, which makes sense. I mean, I like Karl's, honesty with Lotte here. He's like, that was really it. He's like, I didn't come here for inheritance. I didn't come here for a grudge or revenge. I just wanted to prove my dad was kind of, a joke so that I feel better about my current situation. And that's pretty much it. And then Lotte asks if he's ever seen the Thursday boy. And so she's like, no, I've heard about him. He's blonde and had a handsome face, which happens to meet both Johan and the one guy, Edmund. And so who is the Thursday boy? And I get that Karl's like frustrated. He's like, there's somebody here pretending to be me. And he's like, and I don't like that. Because he's like, my mother, was a nice person and gave everything to send me away, and this guy's impersonating me. He's like, I don't like it. And then we get the flashback with his mom. She says, take the money and get on the 5th train line. A lady named Marta will be there. Get off at the station. Like, she sends him on his way. He was such a cute kid, little baby Karl. He was so cute. She's like, I can't go with you. He was such a cute little kid. He says, are the police chasing you? Like, he kind of knows what the situation is, which is the really sad thing, is that he knows what's up, right? My question is, why would the police be chasing her unless she was doing like illegal prostitution or was involved in drugs or anything? Yeah, why would the police chase her? Because he says he wants to be with her. And she's like, if you stay with me, you'll be put in an orphanage. And if you stay here, the people will call you the son of a whore. Now, would that orphanage have been Kinderheim? I don't know. I don't know. Would he have gone to Kinderheim if he'd been at the orphanage and she was trying to prevent that? I don't know. And then she says, people here will call you the son of a whore if you stay. She's like, I want better for you. She was so pretty. And I wondered if she was Turkish, maybe, because he has like the curly black hair. I wondered if, like the Turkish district, if she was afraid that people, if it was one of those things where she's Turkish, but she didn't look Turkish, and maybe that's why Schubert left her. Like, maybe he got with her and then realized her background and was like, oh, I can't be with someone like this, and left her with their kid. Maybe because, it could have been one of those things where she didn't look like a traditional Turkish person, and so he didn't know. I don't know if that's the case or not, but that ran through my head during this episode. He said, my father is Hans Georg Schubert. And she's like, who told you that? And he said, Miss Bella across the street said so. She said I was abandoned by my father. And then, she clears like, no, that's not it. She's like, you weren't abandoned. And he's like, oh, then I'll go see him. So there's something else to the story. She's like, there's something else she's not telling him. She's like, oh, you weren't abandoned. There's something else is going on. And I hope in the next episode we find out, like, if he's able to talk to... I want him to be able to talk to Schubert, even if Schubert dies or whatever. I want Karl to get answers. I want Karl to find out. He can't ask his mom. She's dead. I feel like Johan's in the process of about to kill Schubert to take his money. But I want Karl to be able to ask Schubert what the deal was and get an answer by the end of this. And I feel like next episode that might happen. So... But yeah, she's like, you can't now. And he's like, well, then when can I? She says, when you grow up. If you want to see him, you can see him then. And it's, the way that she looks at him and holds his head is so beautiful and sweet. Like the expression she has, it's gorgeous. And I'm just like, I want to know the circumstance and what all is going on. And I have a feeling we may find answers in the next episode. So I don't want to be told. I want to find out as we go. But... she's like, you mustn't want anything from him. You must not hate him if he treats you coldly. And she says, why? Because I don't hate him. And that's the thing. Whatever has happened, she doesn't hate him for it. And she's like, I don't want you to show up asking for handouts from him. And I don't want you showing up hating him. Because she's like, I don't hate him. There's a reason why he did what he did. And she's like, I don't want you to hate and resent him for it. And it's like... what? It's, oh my gosh. It's just wild, right? It's just wild. And so then she gives him this little trinket. She pulls something out, right? I want to see what this was. Like, is it a button? What is it exactly? She pulls it and puts it in his hand. There's something. And she says, take this. Your father gave you this when you were born. So he's had this whole time. And Lottie figures out who the Thursday boy is. And he's been sick all week. Meaning he's been dead. And they say they'll catch the imposter. That was Monday. So has he been dead this whole week? What? I don't know. Johan freaks me out in this episode. I'm like, nope. And so I like that. The thing about it is, what I like about Karl's character is he just wants to know about his dad. He just wants to know why he left, what the deal was. He doesn't hate the man. He just wants to know, for his mother's sake, like, what was the point? And obviously the mother couldn't tell him at the time because he was too young. So what's the deal, right? That's what he wants to know. And what I love about Karl's character is that he doesn't care about the money. He has a good life with his current foster parents, so he doesn't want to ruin that. He doesn't care about the money. He just wants, what he doesn't like is the fact that someone else is imitating his mother's son. He's like, I don't like the fact that someone's posing around as me, saying that they're me, but they're not. And that runs my mother's name through the mud, and I don't like it. So I like Karl's character a lot. I am nervous as hell for him that he's going to die because Johan's involved, but we go back to Tuesday and Karl is reading to him and he's not saying anything. And the thing of it is that Schubert says, why didn't you quit after I yelled at you so much? And it's like you want Karl to talk to him right now and admit everything because it may be too late next week, but he doesn't say anything and it's like, no. So he says, why didn't you quit? And Karl's like, he can't answer. He's like, was the money that good? And Karl's like, it's not the money. No. He's like, it's not that. I'm like, does he believe him though? He's like, can you talk about anything but money? He's like, just as you said. Where are your parents? And he's like, I have foster parents. And he says, I see. Forgive me, why do you want to meet your real parents? Oh my God. And it's like Karl, like grabbing the book, he's like, oh, how do I tell him? He's like, I'm standing in front of my real parent. But what do I say? He says, the truth is, it seems the boy who appeared this time is the real thing. But is he talking about Karl or is he talking about Johan? He doesn't want money. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I was talking to myself. I'm like, is he talking about Karl or is he talking about Johan? I hope he's talking about Karl, but I could see Johan trying to scam him out of money. Oh my God, it's so frustrating. Like, I wanted him to talk to him even more. He said, I forgot to mention that your Latin's gotten better. And it seems like he's blind, maybe. Like he can't see. Oof. Maybe, or his eyesight's really bad. Oh my God. And so then we had Wednesday, and he still wasn't there. And then Thursday they went to the mansion, but he wasn't there until they went to the apartment. And then the moment the door opens up in this episode, the moment the door opens up and it's dark and Monster does that thing, that cinematic thing where it's like, whoop, and it zooms out, that's when you know. That's when you know some stuff's going down. And there was like pictures on the wall and like these women. And then there he is. But I'm like, why? And he was just hanging there. But he looked blonde and had the kind of like curly hair and a suit on. So he kind of looked like Johan. What the hell? Oh my God. And so they said, everybody's talking about Edmund and that he committed suicide. His last testament is in the school paper. I can't pretend any longer. He's talking about, I guess, pretending to be Schubert's son, becoming close to him and was consumed by the pangs of guilt. And then, but yeah, Lottie makes a good point. She's like, if he was going to be troubled so much that he would kill himself, he shouldn't have done it in the first place. Like what was the deal? I was like, I think he didn't kill himself. I think that Johan got rid of him. And I think Johan's trying to get rid of everybody that's in the way of him getting the money. And so I'm like, Karl, watch your back. And that's when he's like, oh, Lotte, yesterday was quite a ruckus, wasn't it? I was like, ah! He knows her by name. And she's like, yeah, we were questioned by the police all day. And he's just so pale. Oh, my God. And he said, my reading was called off today. They're all reading the same book. Mr. Schubert was very troubled by the news. I'm like, Karl, I'll introduce you. This is the Friday reader. He says, nice to meet you. Yeah. Karl Newman. And his hands are so pale, like a vampire's. And he's like, oh, hi, I'm Johann Liebert, a law major. Nope. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Nope. So then we have the ED, which picks up where we left off at. I wondered if, since we were starting, like we were at the 1/3 mark, if we were going to keep on the story. But yeah, so we have like the man that swallowed the monster and then swallowed the monster, and then the monster pops out of his head. Yep, and scares the children away. Fun times. So yeah. And does that ED mean that Johann is the monster inside of Johann only coming out when he feels threatened? What's the deal? This was such a two-parter. Here's the thing. I've had a lot of people ask in the comments on YouTube, they were like, are you going to watch more than one episode a week of Monster? And the short answer is no. The long answer is, one, I cannot fit it into my schedule to do more than one episode. I'm already doing another series where I'm watching multiple episodes, and that takes a long time. And I'm still getting I'm at like nearly 40 minutes for this one episode. It would be like an hour and a half reaction at minimum if I was doing two episodes a week. And I just don't have time to do that in editing. It's just not fitting my schedule. And two, this episode makes you want to watch 2 episodes at once because it's a 2-parter. There's hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully the next episode is going to be the next part, right? So you have that. But at the same time, not every episode is a 2-parter. Like the last several episodes, while they've been threaded together, they've been single episodic episodes. So they aren't really connected, but they kind of are. So I feel like watching them one at a time. Well, yes, it's going to take me like a whole year, all of 2023 to get through Monster. But that's fine because I want to savor each episode and break each episode down as I can. It's just frustrating when you have episodes like these that are clearly 2-parters that you're like, ah. So, but what can we do? Right? So yeah, So yeah, that's where we're at. But yeah, I'm excited, y'all. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen next. Oh, I hope you are too. I'm not going to be able to wait for the next episode. It's going to have to come out real soon, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, right? So, yeah. So, I hope you all have a wonderful week. I hope you enjoyed this discussion of Monster and the reaction. I'm super excited to get episode 26. We'll get to it before we know it. So, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 26 of Monster. Bye.